Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Talented Learning webinar, Rising Above Continuing Education Barriers, How to Overcome Innovation Obstacles in Continuing Education. Your four panelists today are John Lay, CEO and Lead Analyst for Talented Learning, Tamar Ali, who's the SVP Education for Community Brands, Katie Hill, Associate Director at the Drug Information Association, and David Kestenbaum, Director, CST at the University of Vermont. Without further ado, now I'd like to pass the floor over to John to begin.
All right. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, everybody, for logging in from around the world. Excited to bring you a great panel discussion here with a whole host of experts, and we'll get into introducing everybody. Just a little bit. One last housekeeping item. This participation today qualifies for one CAE credit, if that means something to you. At the end of the day, email me and I'll make sure that you get a certificate. And we'll be, even though you can ask questions throughout today, we'll save the spot at the end to be able to thread them in. If we don't get to them today because of all the good discussion, we'll follow up individually with answers to help facilitate that. So that's how we'll handle questions. Today is part of the Talented Learning webinar series. We're fiercely independent research analysts in the extended enterprise and professional continuing education space. We just crossed over 5 years, and we do monthly webinars and produce podcasts and weekly blogs all around the topics of continuing education, professional development, and extended enterprise learning, all with the goal of helping buyers in this space buy better and smarter. So we'll head right to today's agenda. And so we have a long tradition at Talented Learning of highlighting both the vendor and the practitioner expert perspectives in continuing education and professional development. And so today we're continuing in that tradition. We have an expert from an association, a member-based association. We have another expert from a very different type of mission-based nonprofit organization solution. And then we also have a solution provider here that does nothing or just about nothing other than live in the association and professional development and certification space. So through those three perspectives, we're bringing almost 80 years of continuing education experience. And what we're going to do from an agenda standpoint is we're going to talk about the association and the nonprofit, understand from an organizational standpoint, and then what the educational mission and strategy is, and then to dig down into the digital learning aspects and experience part of it, to talk about the changing learner demographics and how that's impacting the strategy for education and learning and certification at these organizations, and what that means from a content perspective and how to present it and how to engage those learners. We're going to talk about technology and the ecosystem, knowing that it's very different from association to association, and certainly different from mission-driven nonprofits that are part of bigger and broader organizations sometimes, to have a series of pieces to integrate to make one of these solutions, or to make a professional development solution work and work well. And so we're going to uncover what that looks like at these organizations, our panelist organization, and how they deal with it. And we're also going to talk about pricing and packaging and promotion techniques that they use to drive the sale and engagement of their products. And throughout all of these topics, we're looking at through the lens of understanding what our panelists have done and the helpful advice they can provide of overcoming the barriers in all those areas of what they learned, and all of that to hope that our audience here will learn from that and be able to help move your organizations forward. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And here is the Esteem Panelists. I'm John Lay. I'm the CEO and Lead Analyst of Talented Learning. I've been in professional continuing education now for almost 25 years. I'm going to host and be the master of ceremonies today, and really let the other three panelists shine as the experts today as they are. So starting from right to left, we have Dave Kestenbaum, and Dave is the director of the certification of sustainable transportation, and was previously the lead researcher for the Green Coach certification pilot program. As director, David has helped to design and develop and operationalize the CST certification and its many components. and is in charge of leading its day-to-day business operations. He also serves as the program's primary liaison with external partners. As a specialist working in the field of sustainable development, David has been instructing courses at the University of Vermont now for 16 years. His resume includes an array of accomplishments within the field of community development, ranging from helping rural communities in Central America and the United States develop sustainable tourism, also helping multinational organizations to help green their organization. Dave, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. And we also have Katie. All right, thanks, Dave. We also have Katie Hill, who's the Associate Director of DIA Learning at the Drug Information Association. And Katie is responsible for the learning strategy that drives the curriculum development and the dissemination of DIA's global learning portfolio, including face-to-face courses and synchronous and asynchronous online courses. Katie has extensively served the DIA in a series of roles of increasing responsibility, including Senior Manager of America Projects, Senior Manager of Training, Manager of Volunteer Services, and even Program Development Manager. Suffice to say, she is quite the expert in education and professional development, and looking forward to learning your insights. Katie also served as a legislative aide to Texas State Senator also, so a nice diverse background to bring to the table today. Katie, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and we also have Tamer Ali, and Tamer Ali is an educational technologist with a passion for developing educational technology. Tamer currently serves as the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Educational Solutions at Community Brands. And prior to joining Community Brands, he founded Digital Ignite, which was the world's first professional development-specific learning management system. And the platform is called Crowd Wisdom, which was later acquired by Community Brands. Tamer has more than 17 years experience working in industry-leading educational technology development, serving large and small organizations on a global scale, probably more than anybody I know. Tamer works with just countless continuing education, for-profit, not-for-profit organizations that specialize in lifelong learning. And so can't wait to have your perspective also. Tamer, welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
John, a pleasure.
All right. So the way that we'll work today is we're going to start off with the big picture and then just continue to peel the onion, so to speak, as we dig deeper and deeper. And so we'll let each of our panelists introduce their organization, their mission, their membership or their learning audiences, and generally give us a grounding of what their organization does in life, so that we can put all the professional development in context. And so, Katie Hill, Associate Director of the Drug Information Association, we'll start with you.
Okay. So DIA is a global association. We bring together industry, patients, government, and academia from all disciplines for knowledge exchange in a neutral environment. And then the end goal of that group is to bring safe medicines to patients faster. And we do that in a variety of ways, including conferences and learning, publications, as well as podcasts and research projects.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And Dave, tell us about the certification for sustainable transportation, kind of a unique organization to say the least. Give us the rundown, please.
Definitely. So I teach at the University of Vermont, and I also have a post with our extension program. And extension is charged with bringing the knowledge of the university out to sort of the larger community, taking the knowledge of the university and helping apply it for the quote-unquote public good. And in 2012, we decided we wanted to work on a program to help promote community and economic development and improve economic and environmental and energy efficiency within the passenger transportation sector, mainly aimed at helping, combat and mitigate climate change and reduce the environmental footprint in the transportation sector. And we grew a program with a small ragtag team out of Vermont, and happy to say we are now working in 4 Canadian provinces, 43 states in the U.S., and Guam, and we don't run from any external grants, but we basically, as a mission-driven not-for-profit program, we're able to support our work with donations from the private sector, and we're working with a little over 100 companies, throughout North America and different parts of the world.
Wow, outstanding. Saving the world one learner at a time. Right. And community brands. Tamer, tell us about your organization, please.
Thanks, John. We're offering a comprehensive portfolio of solutions. We're essentially trying to bring the best-in-class providers and solutions for various nonprofits and mission-based organizations, and really 4 segments. It's the K through 12, like kindergarten through 12th grade solutions for primary education. Associations and nonprofits are the other 2 major categories, and faith-based organizations. All of them, you kind of see the tie that binds all of them, and essentially all these organizations have very specific needs, and the technologies and solutions behind them are places where we've brought together these organizations in one place where these very cause-based and mission-based organizations can find as a single source provider.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. All right. What a lineup here to start talking about this topic. So let's continue. Katie, how about you? We'll continue to dig in to the DIA. Could you tell us about your overall professional education strategy and the approach for your organization? Anything you want to tell us about it? How you think about that, how important it is, what changes or behaviors you're trying to change inside your audience. All those things would be interesting to us. Can you please tell us about it?
Sure. So we offer an extensive portfolio. We have more than 100 courses globally that we offer through many different delivery methods, including face-to-face, online, both the synchronous and asynchronous courses, as well as blended learning courses, which we've just begun to offer in the last year or 2. And then over the last couple years, probably say about 5 years, we've been working to implement a digital learning strategy that has included revamping all of our online course portfolio and rebuilding it from scratch. We've also implemented a new LMS. We are most recently, actually as of next week, launching learning paths for our certificate programs as well as digital badges. So this is all part of our digital learning strategy and moving forward.
Mm-hmm. A follow-up question to that, from a learning path standpoint, do you intend to give your learners both search for just point solutions or point learning, or primarily guide them down paths based on where they're at in their career, or both?
So DIA is multidisciplinary, so we have a lot of people that work in the same industry, but they focus in different areas. And so we've picked one specific area in our in drug safety and pharmacovigilance, and we've created a learning path, or sort of a logical path of courses based on a competency framework that we've built.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just provides that path for the learner as they're entering the industry or perhaps shifting to a new role within the industry, to give them the framework to work in drug safety. So they'll follow the path, and as they complete the courses in that learning path, which could take 1 to 3 years depending, they'll be issued digital badges along the way. And then once they're done the actual formal learning, then they'll complete an exam. And once they pass that exam, they'll be issued the actual certificate for the program, as well as the digital badge.
Wow, excellent. Sounds great. How about you, Dave? Could you tell us about your overall professional education strategy and how that's different?
Sure. We've got basically 3 courses that we offer to all the organizations that we're partnered with. We work with mostly private sector companies, and what we like to do is make the learning that we do part of a broader campaign. So it's just sort of one tool in our toolkit. And as a mission-driven organization, we're primarily driven to help companies improve fuel efficiency, hence they'll save money, but they'll also reduce their carbon footprint. And we want to be able to induce behavioral change for their frontline workers. That might be someone on a wash crew, or a driver, or even maintenance staff. So they would be considered sort of a non-traditional audience to receive this sort of messaging, and they're also not an audience that necessarily traditionally across the board, they're not a high-tech group of learners. So our strategy is to try to make something that's simple for the organizations we're working with to use, and then easy to access for all their frontline staff, especially because a lot of this work is in critical path for their organizations. So our job is to try to make it just add water easy, fun, but at the same time has some sticking power and be effective. And so we do that by really trying to streamline systems, making stuff that's fun and easy to use, as well relevant to our audience, it's essentially will be received well by the folks we're working with.
Mm-hmm. And like Katie, do you plan to turn that in using digital badges or anything as they complete your courses or series of courses, or is something like that not important to your strategy?
When anybody completes a course, they get a certification. We actually, because we're trying to induce behavioral change, we ask them to demonstrate certain level of competency related to the knowledge that they've gained through the trainings. And then we ask them, actually, instead of they don't just receive the certificate at the end of the training. Our goal is, because we want to induce behavioral change, we ask them to sign a pledge saying they pledge to use this behavior. And they could opt in and pledge yes, or opt out and pledge no. And then they, get that certification and the proof that they have taken this pledge that they can use internally at whatever organization they're with, or if they're a professional driver, carry with them to other organizations.
Wow, excellent. Neat. And how about you, Tamer? Based on what you know about these organizations, anything you want to weigh in and add about that that's unique?
I think the unique nature of both is, they're trying, and the difference in both organizations is probably the one thing that really stands out is, Dave is handling, what he would consider, non-traditional learners in a way that he has to engage them, which is already difficult. We're talking about education, so people are not always running to us to take the education. And then much less when you're dealing with a group that may not be natively or comfortably working within technology constantly, and he's doing it very successfully. Whereas on Katie's side, they're trying to formalize learning in a different way to build a trajectory for learning that builds beyond what we typically see as the hunting and pecking of content, where a lot of our clients still are, where they just serve up a menu of courses typically organized in alphanumeric fashion. Where we see the maturation is where Katie's going is we're showing a path of learning, and where people are supposed to go, where there's a trajectory and a path that's clear for them, and clear designation, a path that leads them to a designation or a level of status that they're seeking very clearly, instead of just the listing on the menu approach. So that's the thing that stands out for the two different groups. I mean, it's totally different environments, each one, but they're dealing with challenges that seem to be insurmountable for a lot of groups, but they do it well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great. Thanks for that. And Tamer, while you're here virtually, you get to see a lot of organizations in the sector, in association, in nonprofit or not-for-profit, and in the corporate sector, and deal with a lot of audiences. Any overall, what do you think are the overall trends for learners that are important from your perspective? And then we'll dig into DIA and Dave's organization to see how they hold up.
So it's probably the common ones that people can assume. but where we see the successes, people like Dave and Katie are not consumed by the challenges that they see. They see those as potential opportunities to differentiate and vary their approaches. Mobile is always increasing in usage. In a lot of organizations, it's 30 to 40% of activity. We see trends like the amount of video. I mean, we saw some pretty staggering stuff this year of that. Most of the internet traffic in the world is taken over by two major sources. That is YouTube and Netflix. Netflix being the most, 17%. So it's a crazy amount of consumption of video, which we can probably use as a proxy to say the video-based learning is, a place where people can learn, and, Khan Academy and what you can learn from YouTube probably is very consistent with that. What we think is the key thing is that we don't see those as things that people should be overwhelmed by, but see those as encouraging signs that adoption of e-learning is happening, and that you should take a piecemeal approach. And the places where we see success, that these are the things that we see. Piecemeal approaches, constantly asking what solution does this provide, and what am I trying to solve for, and not just being attracted to potential trends or buzz phrases that we in learning typically do. We are guilty of that. So pragmatism, the taking of things in iterations. And I think the third thing that you'll hear in Dave's voice and in Katie's is a unwavering level of passion and enthusiasm and leadership. And the places that we've seen success, that's key. You can just hear them, and you kind of want to just work with them. And they convey that into their programs, and they are able to attract the right talent to bring those programs together. So those are the things that I mean, that was probably a long-winded answer to your question, but those are the ones we see.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. No, that was perfect. Hey, Dave, so you were telling us before that your audience isn't necessarily a common target audience, and not necessarily maybe the highest tech capable audience or on a daily basis. How did that, tell us more about how that changed or modified, or how you had to modify your approach to adapt to, that common denominator of your audience. Can fill us in more about that and other trends with your audience?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And so, I teach at a university, and so I'm exposed to sort of a lot of the, your more traditional learners, but I also, been fortunate enough to have a range of experiences and used to do a lot of international and community development work. And I know, you have to, tailor your approach to the context, of your audience itself. In developing the programs that we put together, we wanted to make sure our sign-up process was really simple and streamlined. Our monitoring process as well, and then during the design of our course itself, make sure that what we did was we actually went out and we designed our online courses that were also very video heavy and content heavy with frontline workers in the field. So it wasn't the folks at the university designing content from A to Z. We worked in partnership and conjunction with folks on the ground, and had, most of our messaging that is delivered on these online trainings come from professional drivers and business managers and dispatch offices and mechanics, that are in the field. So hopefully, it seems like a comfortable space for people to go in. We used to build our programs in Adobe Captivate. However, we've recently found that we've had more success, and they're a little more mobile friendly in HTML5, so we moved to that. And what we're even looking into doing right now is trying to, I think this is a couple of years out, but shift to weave our online courses and our larger campaigns into a gamification strategy where folks can get feedback on a fairly regular basis of after they take training, is it affecting behavioral change in their daily lives, and also being able to send out regular tips and to help reinforce training, so it's not just something that's a one and done type scenario, but the messaging is maintained over time.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure that was the greatest answer, but I think I had a few different points, but hopefully I hit what you wanted me to hit, and it's valuable for the audience here.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's interesting to hear that, to extend that learning out past the online, especially with your pledge concept. It'd be neat to go back on a regular basis and reinforce the pledge and the content as a way to continuing that education and awareness when it probably might be easy to forget over time. How about video, Dave? Taylor was talking about how important is that? Do you weave video into your content or no?
Yep. So our trainings, have a lot of pop-up videos and interviews from different people. Where instead of just having the training come through with an avatar and text and narration, we want to mix up the voice for the audience to try to keep them engaged. Do that. So we'll have presentations and then stop with click and drag exercises. Just to mix things up and help keep the learner engaged.
Last quick question: do they do this take this training on laptops or on mobile devices, or both?
Yeah, both. Yep, both. So traditionally on laptops. However, we just with our experimentation to HTML5 last year, we're finding that it's been working out to be very very mobile friendly. And so I think we're dependent on making sure that future trainings are mobile friendly, because there's a trend in that direction. And to be honest, it's more likely that our audience has access to a mobile device rather than a laptop computer or desktop.
All right, interesting. Okay, well, thank you, Katie. How about you? You serve your audiences are across all different age groups, across all different professions. Even within the same organization or disciplines. How do that diversity of your audiences impact your learning styles and how you develop learning? Is it impactful? Is it something that you consider, or is it? Tell us about it.
Yeah, when we design our curriculum, we have to think about that. We do, as you mentioned, have a very diverse audience. Some of people have just started in the industry and are brand new and really looking for basic level training. And then we have others that have been in the industry 15 or 20 years and are coming back either because they need a refresher on regulations that are changing or compliance reasons, or they could be switching within the industry into a new profession or a new area. So we have a pretty diverse audience. And the other challenge, or I look at it as an opportunity actually, is we have a global audience. So we're having to design with that in mind and think about language and, where we're headed in the future in terms of translation and all of that. So it is something that we constantly are looking at. It's changing regularly, so we have to keep an eye on it. But it's something that we definitely take into consideration as we're working on our curriculum.
Mm-hmm. And when you deliver globally, are you translating like each piece of content or localizing each piece of content into a series of languages, or do you deliver in English globally? What's your strategy there?
So right now we're still trying a couple different methods and see what works the best. We're recording all of our online, all of our sessions from our live conferences, which is great. It's an unbelievable amount of content for us. So we have those video recordings, and now we're looking at ways of if the video recording is, for instance, in Chinese, do we offer the interactive transcript with it that might be in English, for instance, that is in time with the video. So there's some different methods we're trying. So that's for video. For e-learning and actual self-paced courses, it's just a matter of translating it and getting voiceover resynced. So we're looking at all of those different methods.
Wow, great. And how about we'll while we have you here virtually here, we'll move to question 3 as we prune down. How about things in your digital strategy, video and mobile, extending that out to the little drips of learning, after they finish your courses or learning paths or certification? Can you comment on some of that, on how that impacts or doesn't impact your content?
So it's another challenge or opportunity, depending on the way you're looking at it. It's an enormous amount of content. I think I was just talking with someone recently. We did 6 months worth of conference material recently that we had uploaded to the learning management system, and it was 44,000 minutes of video content already at only 6 months worth, and it was something like 600 and some videos. So it builds over time, and so one of the things that we're really looking at is how do we curate that content, so it's not so overwhelming for the learner. How do we try and segment it for them? And now one of the things that we're really working on is how do we make it easily searchable so they can find exactly what they want. They don't have to start digging through a 90-minute video to find the one 20-minute talk that they're looking for. How do we continue to refine our search capabilities so we can get them right to what they want when they need it?
Wow. And how are you approaching that? Is that through technology, or is it through better documentation from a metadata standpoint, or combination of that? How are you going to improve that search? That sounds like a big, gigantic problem with 600 videos or just in 6 months.
Yeah, so both. We're looking at, working with our LMS vendor, of course, looking at ways to improve our search functionality and then the displaying of those search results, and how we can refine that to make it easier. But also that relies on us doing a really good job of tagging our content with, relevant metadata and other things so that the searching can work. So it's both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And just curious, what are some ways that you organize the content in your categories? Is it by show? Is it by topic? Is it by CE type? All of the above? How do you dice it up?
All of the above, and that's part of the challenge. We want search to work for us, so we'll organize it by conference, but we can also organize it by topic. So we have, for instance, I mentioned earlier, we have a certificate program in drug safety. We could curate all of those sessions that were specifically on drug safety across all of our conferences and just pull those videos into a package. So we're looking at different ways to do it. And then, some of the other ways that we're looking is we're putting speaker names and bios in, so making them easily searchable as well, so that if someone just wants to find a speaker that spoke at multiple conferences, they shouldn't have to go dig around to find those sessions. They should be able to just search on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Excellent. Excellent. It's a combination of the searches and the search improvements and your new learning paths or journeys are great ways here that you're guiding people to the content that they need, both real time and then career time. So that's interesting. It seems like those are a set of problems that maybe you don't have to deal with, Dave, since you have kind of more clients and less courses. Is that accurate, or are you also worried about getting people to the right content?
To be honest, yes, we have, our complexity comes with other parts of our programs. And as far as, we have very streamlined learning portal. People are able to access the courses in a very easy manner. And to be honest, we set up this strategy a number of years ago, and we've been able to just sort of just let it run on its own, and it's working, and we blend it into what we've been doing. We do little things to make sure we help with a diverse audience, such as we make sure that because some of our language learners don't speak English, or some of our learners don't speak English as a first language, we make sure we simplify sort of the type of language that we use, and we make sure our narrator is speaking with a fairly slow cadence. In the future, we talked about translating our courses into other languages. If we had more capital in our program, we would have done that a few years ago. However, I could also see if we continue to grow, we will end up doing that in the next couple of years. And then to help support the diverse audience as well, we work a lot offline. It would be nice for us to, I think we have some room for sort of adding a level of sophistication to what we do and sort of the technological solutions, but we try to, complement sort of the online learning with a lot of more traditional analog support and messaging. Companies that have, where people take our training programs, and we send them stuff as simple as posters to put up around their shops, drivers who take the courses get pins showing that they completed the courses, as it embraces behavior. And then we even help companies set up, weekly or monthly reminders about whatever people learned about. So they'll do a text blast or an email blast, to everyone in the company, reminding over the course of a 2-3 year period, one of the lessons learned in the training. So it's ongoing. So we take a very blended approach, for the groups that we work with. So it's not just, your traditional online learning.
Yeah, neat kind of a combination of marketing, promotion, and learning all in one. Do you find any of your client organizations compensate their employees, reward them somehow for the completion of this? You said about the pins. Any other ways that you've seen anybody give gift cards or, I don't know, some ways to try to get them to complete it quicker, or not really?
Absolutely, and it's different for each organization, for sure. We have some organizations that sign up and allow access to these programs for their employees, where it becomes a voluntary thing for the employees to complete. And then we have other organizations that just make it part, schedule employees to come in and they have to complete it as part of a work day. And other organizations that say, all right, everyone go in and complete these trainings within the next 6 to 8 weeks. And oftentimes when they do that, they incentivize employees to take these trainings themselves by tying the completion to maybe a quarterly bonus or a Christmas or holiday gift. We've even have companies that just give employees a straight $100 sort of bonus for each of the courses that they take. So if they take 2 45-minute online trainings, they automatically get $200, added to their paycheck at the end of the year. And for employees whose base pay probably across the country averages around $14 to $16 an hour, to be honest, that's quite an incentive. More often than not, though, after people take these trainings, the companies we work with set up goals, right? Because you could have all your employees take trainings, but hopefully these trainings are linked to organizational goals where people want to see results. And so we might say, all right, after everyone takes these trainings, we as an organization want to improve our fuel efficiency by 5%. So somebody at the organization will track fuel efficiency as a KPI or key performance indicator. And if the indicator is met, basically everyone collectively will share in an incentive program where there would be the savings would be calculated and then distributed back out to staff. So we've seen people take all sorts of approaches, from straight gift cards to participation to waiting to see behavioral changes linked with the implementation of these programs or campaigns.
Wow, that's interesting. That is really neat to hear how organizations, not to go too far off topic, but Katie, do you see anything similar in your groups from a reward or incentive standpoint to help market the completion of these things, or is that not needed in your industry?
Really, the learner being self-motivated in most cases. They're looking for the learning. They're looking for the content to help them do their daily job. So nothing so much external. What we are hoping to do is generate some buzz with the badges, and that can create some external motivation just because they're seeing their peers or colleagues earning badges for learning, and so that may create some additional external motivation for other learners. But for the most part, they're coming to us specifically for learning so that it will help them do their daily job. Can
they take those badges that they earn and put them on LinkedIn, for example?
They can. They can put them on LinkedIn. They can put them in their email signature. They can share them through other social media channels. So there's a lot of ways that they're very shareable but verifiable, so that it's not just a picture. If you click on it, you can actually go see what that learner did to earn the badge and the date they earned the badge, and that, yes, indeed, it was them that earned the badge and not someone else.
Excellent. Neat to see just the different approaches. That everybody has the same problem, but there's different ways to solve it based on those learner demographics. For those of you joined late, put some faces to the names again. We've been hearing from Dave Kestenbaum, who's the director of CST from the University of Vermont, and Katie Hill, associate director from the Drug Information Association, and Tamer Ali from Community Brands, and myself, John Lay, hosting it. So just in case you came in late there, we'll go right into the next question and keep on digging down deeper. So both Katie and Dave really come from two different, as you can hear, just two different types of organizations, even though they're both involved in generally doing the same thing from an education standpoint, have different member types, different member demographics, different scope on the content that they have, and approaches on how they sell it. And so it's one of the things that we uncover all the time at Talented Learning is that no two of these organizations are alike, and no two stacks of technology are alike too, because you need so many things to work in concert. And so Dave, let's start with you this time. In addition to the LMS, and you were talking about authoring tools, what are the different pieces of technology that work together that you have to worry about to make your operation, your educational operation sing? What are those pieces?
We keep it really simple. We have our LMS system, which is, a very robust system, and really appreciate it. And, full disclosure, we use, Tamer's one of Community Brand Solutions, and really been loving it. And then, outside of that, very just traditional office management tools. We keep an Access database. We, for our own internal tracking, we get to make use of sort of the university's larger infrastructure for invoicing clients, and so on my end, I get to play with Excel and Word and, an Access database, but the more complex tracking stuff occurs, from our university, which is a large bureaucracy and could probably update its technology, to be honest, but it seems to be working well for us for our needs, which are pretty simple. And then moving forward, it's also pretty neat. I mentioned we try to track, impacts at companies, because at the end of the day, we're looking at not just gaining knowledge, but, an actual having that knowledge shift attitudes and motivate a behavioral shift and even a cultural shift at an organization. And so to help us better track what those impacts are, we're now starting to work with some of the, what are called telematics companies. Transportation companies now have access to more data than they've ever had before, and are consolidating data from like engine computers into large databases. They get data on every driver when they drive, with related to hard braking, aggressive starts and stops, speeding incidences. However, nobody's really consolidating or using that data, and so we are just starting some conversations with these companies to figure out how we can get feedback, to the drivers themselves or frontline workers, so people can have a better understanding, of what they do on a regular basis or daily basis, is affecting the larger organization and helping that set up individual goals. So in the aggregate, everyone's individual goals can have a large shift. So we keep things pretty simple, however, moving to the future where, it seems there are some opportunities for this more complex integration. And I think we'll know better how that plays out in about 2-3 years.
Nice. There's nothing wrong with simple. Simple and working is a great place to be, for sure. That's neat too about, though, not just you, but every organization is figuring out how they can take this data, this voluminous data that exists from an industry standpoint, and then overlay that or combine that with training and completion and program data, and then to draw your conclusions from there to help actually get to that measurable impact that you're making and that measurable change in behavior. So to tie that whole loop is, especially with your mission, is sounds like a great path that you're heading towards. Katie, how about you? Is yours as simple as that, or do you got more balls in the air from a technology and integration standpoint in your ecosystem?
So we started out relatively simple, but you know, as we've continued to change things and grow, we've gotten a little more complex. So we are integrated with our association management system, which is Personify, which handles the transactions and then sends the learner over to the LMS to actually take their course. And then actually, the LMS is then sending back completions to our AMS after the fact so that individuals can get their continuing education credit for those courses. But we've also, as I mentioned, we're doing digital badging now, so the LMS is also integrated with our badging platform for the same purpose, to send completions to the badging platform to let the system know that it can send the learner a badge to be claimed. So we're integrated there. And then we also have a Zoom integration. We use Zoom for our live webinars, so and live training that's online. So we are integrated, the LMS is integrated with that. So it's just a one-stop shop for the learner. When they're ready to join their course, they can just go right into the LMS and they don't need to use any other links to access their live Zoom.
Wow, that's interesting. The badging platform, which one do you use?
We're using Credly's Acclaim platform.
Neat. And how about from an AMS standpoint? Curious.
We use Personify.
Personify, okay. All right, and then from an LMS standpoint, Crowd Wisdom, I guess?
Crowd Wisdom, yeah.
All right, and Zoom for your virtual classroom. And your authoring tool, did you say what you guys like to use?
So for actual self-paced courses, we're using Articulate Storyline. We're using both Storyline itself, and then we're also using Rise, which is a simpler authoring tool.
So look at that. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different touch points to the LMS in your ecosystem, and not all that uncommon, really. I think for your peers also. Tamer, you want to weigh in? Any systems that you see integrating into the technology stacks that you didn't hear right now that are becoming more prevalent in your client base?
Yeah, I think David and Katie covered it all. I mean, we're definitely seeing an increase in those tools they mentioned, especially, you know, credentialing, micro-credentialing, maybe, you know, integration with, we've seen some interesting things where, you know, notifications and also awards-based systems that are beyond just badging, you know, like recognition and employee recognition. Video continues to be that. And then, you know, creative clients are also integrating with other best-in-class providers outside of just the current ones, like in different libraries. You know, they subscribe to a different content library, and given the e-learning standards, we can launch those. And then, you know, I think just more additional and more complex integrations with those providers that we know of, like a webinar platform like we're using today. Those things, you know, pulling information back from the webinar platforms and using the data that's maybe even already there in their ecosystem just better.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. And I guess the only thing I probably see commonly that we don't see is tied into marketing systems, marketing automation systems, email notification systems, so you can run campaigns and things like that. Seeing that more inside these ecosystems,
sure,
as well as
that's one I missed.
as well as good video server, you know, like a Wistia or I don't know, other video platforms that, you know, serve it up in a real-time streaming way. Okay. All right. So running out of time, which is easy to do with such qualified panelists. But here's the one everybody struggles with. Katie, tell us about how you think about pricing and packaging this content. Are you doing it now by those learning journeys? Are you doing it in bundles? Do you just do it as part of a membership benefit? A couple layers to this. How do you approach pricing, and how did you arrive at that's the best way to do it for your organization? Curious to hear your thoughts on that.
So in terms of the actual price, we look at the amount of content that the learner is getting. It could be the length of the course or the length of the video or any of those type of things. So we're looking at the amount of content, the technical nature of the content, just the industry we work in. We have some pretty heavy technical content. So we consider that when we're looking at price. And then obviously we look at what competitors are doing in the space as well and weigh that in. So those are probably the three main criteria that we look at for pricing. We do package. We do offer courses just individually for learners sometimes just want to come in and get this one thing. And so that, of course, is available. But we do try to package things together. So there might be 6 courses that are part of an e-learning program. We have some that are a little more robust that are even as many as 11 or 12 modules in an e-learning program. And then we've also started a newer product just recently, subscriptions, which is an interesting idea. Within our LMS, we're now curating some content around a specific subject. So for instance, we're getting ready to launch one on patient engagement. So we're taking all of those videos that are, being filmed or recorded around the world, and then we're putting those into a subscription library that individuals can get access to, in our case, for a year once they purchase that subscription, but we'll continually refresh that content. So as new sessions are added, we'll add sessions to that subscription. So we're looking at all these different ways of packaging and delivering content for the learner.
A couple questions. Do you have any free content or freemium content that you use as kind of like a marketing hook to bring people in for the first time and expose them to your content? Do you use that strategy?
We do. We do a lot of webinars that we then record and use for that purpose. With certain session recordings from our conferences are also used in that way. And then we're actually looking to do some free content for members specifically that we'll be looking at for 2019.
And do you, in addition to that subscription, is there any way to just pay you a price and have all of your content? Is there any all-you-can-eat type concepts that you employ, or is it always a subsection of your content, either plan or ad hoc?
Yeah, we haven't done that yet, but nothing's off the table. We're always up for trying new things, so we're continually looking at things like that. So that could be definitely something we look at in the future.
Do you see the revenue generated from this content as like a primary mission or a primary goal of I guess making a profitable revenue stream from the education, or does your organization view it more as a member benefit or a benefit to a member benefit?
So it is a revenue stream for us. We do charge registration fees for our conferences as well as our learning, both face-to-face and online courses for the organization. But as I mentioned, we're looking at what type of free content we want to offer to members, and so that would be more of that membership benefit model. Okay, great, interesting. And Dave, how is it different for you as a nonprofit struggling for funds? How do you approach pricing and setting the pricing and collecting the pricing and packaging? How does that work?
It's a tough one. I mean, we get some revenue in from sponsorships, and then the remainder sort of the funds that go in to support the program are collected pretty much through our online trainings, as well as sort of vehicle certifications that we have, and then we even charge an on-site fee to go out on-site and work for companies. And I mentioned earlier, capital is an issue. We are undercapitalized. We don't have a real cushion. We used to have a cushion from the university when we launched, but we don't anymore. And so, the revenue is real. We found that there's because any efficiency work or environmental work seems to be fluffy or an abstract concept to a lot of the folks in this industry. We've had to keep our pricing low. We keep it for some of the larger companies we work with. They pay in just a small fee, and then we give them sort of that all-you-can-eat. You have access to whatever you'd like type approach. And then for smaller companies, we charge a small fee for people to have access to the online trainings. And we are constantly scraping by and just trying to keep our head above water to the point that it's a passion project. And to the point where last year we had a fundraising goal on July at the end of our fiscal year, at the end of June, and we met it a week before. that gave us enough power to get through. So, pricing's sort of tough. I think for our industry, we give them a lot of value, but we don't know if the market would support higher pricing.
All right. Well, that's.
And the funny thing is that Dave is very humble, but he doesn't mention the key thing this audience all seeks is the highest levels of impact to learning. Behavioral change is what we always want. And he can actually quantify that behavioral change in the number of carbon footprint savings, essentially how much money they're saving companies and the environment savings of, output to the environment in the savings they take in the courses. So I don't know, you want to share that, Dave, but he's too humble to sometimes mention it, but that's a key thing that we're all seeking, and he can actually quantify it.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. We have some companies that we work with, they've improved their fuel efficiency 11%. Across the board, we have a conservative estimate, and believe last year alone during the calendar year, during this past year, during the calendar year, we helped companies save a little over 2 million gallons of fuel, which comes to around 40-something thousand pounds of carbon dioxide. And then if we sort of just do a multiplier, it's about 18,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide were avoided from going into the atmosphere as a result of this work. And that's, equivalent for, just under 1,000, like the impact of 1,000 families in North America, what their carbon footprint would be for a year. It's neat to quantify those results, and it's also been neat because we've had this environmental message reach an unlikely audience, and so we'll go on site and people not only shift the practices, and how they operate, equipment at their jobs, but they'll tell me stories of them, stopping warming up their cars before they leave the house, or shutting off, or avoiding the drive-in, or when they teach their children how to drive, they now teach their children in a different manner, than they did in the past. It's been pretty neat, and this is a very valuable tool for, for a non-for-profit to help, get some messaging out.
Excellent.
Yeah, so
excellent. Wow, what a great conversation. We're at the hour just about. So, Katie, real quick, in 60 seconds or less, if you had to wave a magic wand and go back a few years and do something differently, what would that be, or what one piece of advice would you offer to the audience here that would help them avoid a pitfall that maybe a mistake that you made?
I would say two small pieces of advice. One, start small. It can get difficult if you look at the big picture and try and accomplish it all at once. Just start small. And then the second thing I would say is pick the right solution partners. Do your due diligence. Find partners that are passionate about your mission and what you're trying to accomplish. And if you find those right partners, I think really you'll be able to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish in the end goal, because you're all moving in that same direction.
More than just technology. Great advice, Katie. Dave, parting advice, parting wisdom?
Sort of reiterating what Katie said, I would say don't be intimidated by sort of all the moving parts and pieces up front. I think you can approach these challenges by keeping it simple at first, and doing your research on who the right partners are. We tried to use another LMS system when we got started, and the same system that our university uses internally. And to be honest, it was too cumbersome for what we were doing with our private sector partners. And so once we found the right solution, well, it's made it a lot easier moving forward.
Always helps to have the right tool, for sure.
Yep.
Sure. Tamer, last bit of advice from you, sir.
I couldn't outdo what Dave and Katie said. I think that the key thing is never rest on the success, and outside of just the starting simple, is continue to try to reinvent and look at things. A lot of the organizations that are probably on this call are non-for-profit or essentially mission-based organizations. And in that case, yes, you do have some goals to return on the investments and things. But in essence, if you're just doing the same things you have always done, then essentially you should probably expect the same results. Try something new. And what I've seen in these groups that are somewhat moving and growing in scale is that they are experimenting, and they can take little dips in the water without risking too much. And that's one thing that we try to encourage everyone is, break apart what you do and reevaluate all the things that you've done, and look back at your missions. Are you really upholding the standards of what your missions have stated? And if not, then what are you waiting for? And those are the things that we challenge our organizations with.
Excellent. Excellent. Great advice. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, attendees. Dave Kestenbaum, Katie Hill, Tamer Lee, for sharing your expertise and your day-to-day lives. It was a great conversation, and I'm sure helpful to a lot of us out there that are learning all these different pieces. So great to hear your progress, and thanks for taking the time to generously share your success and wisdom for all this. From a next step standpoint, once again, email me, John Lay at Talented Learning, if you want your CAE credit. You can reach out to Tamer or myself with any questions and follow up. Chippo, we didn't get a chance to get to your questions, so we'll follow that offline, but otherwise we were trying to answer in line. So reach out to any of us. You can find all of us on LinkedIn also. And if you've got any questions for our panelists, run them through me, and we'll put you in contact and try to make it nice and easy. So thanks, everyone, for joining for another installment of the Talented Learning monthly webinar series. Thanks again, panelists, and you can find more of our content at talentedlearning.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, John.
Michael?
Thanks, Dave and Katie.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you, guys. Have a great day.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Dave. Nice to talk to you guys. Bye-bye.
All right, members, that is all the time that we have for today. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you for your participation. I'd like to also thank John, Tamer, Katie, and David for sharing their expertise with us. This does conclude today's webinar, and we hope that you have a wonderful day. And at this time, you may now disconnect.